We are beginning Unit 3 on quadratics. Our first lesson today is on functions and function notations. Why should we study functions and functions notations? It's a question that's often asked. Like, why am I studying this? Well, functions are not only important in the study of mathematics, they're also important in all forms of reality. Functions are numerical descriptions of the actions that we do every day, such as throwing a ball or driving a car or finding out the interest that we've accrued in a savings account. Functions describe just about any action, reaction, or interaction through the use of variables. Without functions, we wouldn't have computers, the space program, air flights, or even cell phones. None of the things that we take advantage daily. Everything and anything can be described by a function. Learning about functions is the primary and elementary step to learning about anything in math that follows. Because it's the first lesson in this unit, we do have quite a bit of vocabulary. You'll need to know the definition of relationship, domain, and range and be able to identify those terms when you see them. One of the definitions is of a function, which is a relationship in which each input, or another word for input is domain, has exactly one output, or what we call range. So being able to identify, you're going to have all sorts of data that you see in life, but it's not a function unless the input has exactly one output. You also can determine if a graph, table, or set of ordered pairs in fact represents a function based on that definition. By the end of this lesson, you should be able to explain when x is an element of an input of a function. Then we're going to use this new notation called f of x to represent the corresponding output of a function. It's just a fancy way of saying y. And that you can also represent function notation with other letters of the alphabet, not just F. We use F because it starts with the word function, but sometimes we need to be able to tell our functions apart. So you're going to see different letters like G and P. Finally, you're going to be able to evaluate a function for any given value. So we have quite a bit of objectives for this lesson. So your first word is relation. Just like family have relations, you're connected in some way or manner. A relationship with a function has an input and an output, or what we call a domain, and a range. In our example here, these look like ordered pairs. They are ordered pairs. You see the braces on the outside that's showing that these are all related in some way or another. So a relationship is a set of ordered pairs of input and output values. An output is a number or a value you get in return after you input a value. So we do this if you have ordered pairs. These are your x and y values. Your x value is your input. What's the number that I put in? And the output is the number you get in return, or your y values. So in the first question here, it says circle the outputs of this relationship, which is then their y values, the 0, the 3, the 2, and the -4. Another word for output is range. Sorry, R-A-N-G-E. The opposite of range is domain. The domain of a relationship are all the x values. So remember, in a coordinate, the x comes before the y in an ordered pair. So the domain of this relationship is -2, -2, and 5. All those values are called the domain. Relations can be represented in different ways, such as a table, ordered pairs like we had in the previous example, words, a mapping diagram, or graph. Here's an example of a relation. Average water temperature of the Gulf of Mexico in Key West, Florida varies during the year. In January, the average temperature is 69 degrees, February 70 degrees, March 75, and April 78. So we can write this relationship in 4 different ways, or represent it, I should say, in 4 different ways. One way is with a mapping diagram. You see there on the left we have the months, and then you see arrows pointing to, well, what do you get when you put in January, or if you're in Key West in January? Your output is 69 degrees. If you started with February, the arrow would point to which number? Well, it's set up there, 70 degrees. Our story up at the top is how we represent this relationship in words. So this is an example of mapping. You'll see arrows. Another way you can represent the data is with ordered pairs. You see the months are your X values, and the degrees or the temperature are your Y values. You can represent it as a table. You see on the left-hand side we have the months, and at the top there it's even titled X equals month. And on the right-hand side you see the title Y, and in parentheses the degrees Fahrenheit to represent the Y values represent Fahrenheit. And you'll have all the degrees on the right-hand side. And finally, graphs. You see at the bottom of the graph we have the months, and all along the side on the left we have the temperature to show it rising or falling. Domain and range, I already told you once what this meant, but the domain is the set of all input numbers, or the X values. So we say a set because it includes all of them. The range is the set of all output values, or the Y values. If you need help remembering the difference, if you forget, domain comes before range in the alphabet, just like X comes before Y in the alphabet. Let's check that you understand the domain and range in a relationship. Here we have a set of ordered pairs. Let's complete this model represented below. It says first write all the set of your X coordinates. Your X coordinates are your domain. So -3, then look at the next ordered pair, 0. Our next ordered pair, the X value is 2. Our next ordered pair, 9. And then, and 23. Pretty easy. Our range is all the Y values. So they started off with 14. If you go to the next ordered pair, you should have 7, then 0, -18, and -18 and -99. Pretty easy so far? Complete each sentence with the word domain or range. The set of all X coordinates is the domain of the relation. Sorry, my pen is not writing well today. The set of Y coordinates is the range of the relationship. If your packet contains the guided practice, you can spend a little bit of time reviewing those domain and range. Make sure you can identify them. When you are done, you can continue on to the next lesson, 3.2.